Hello and welcome to the Scottish Roadscast, a podcast all about Scotland's roads, bridges and motorways from the Scottish Roads Archive. I'm Stuart Baird.
And I'm John Hassel.
John, great to see you again for the latest episode of our podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, Stuart. It's always good to be back doing this, recording again.
It is indeed, and we have a very special guest joining us this month. Introduce yourself, guest.
It's Duncan McKnight. How are you doing?
Nice to see you again, Duncan. It's been a while since we had you here.
It has indeed. It's when was it? A86 last heard from me?
It would have
Something
been.
like that.
That is going back a bit now.
Yes.
So you're here for the first part of a two-part podcast on the history of
The A82.
Fantastic.
That's been anticipated for a
Indeed.
while. We've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, it has been a while researching it because it is very old in some places, but
And very
I've pulled-
long.
It is very long. I've pulled something together, so hopefully this will be quite coherent.
Good.
Yes, and from the social media posts with A82 images, it's clear there is an
Yes.
interest there.
Yes.
So people no doubt will be very interested to hear about the history behind it. It's an interesting road. It varies quite considerably from one end to the other.
Yes,
a
it
lot
does.
of character to it. So looking forward to hear a wee bit.
Well,
Yes.
well, before we
About
let you start, Duncan, there's a question for you, Stuart, so maybe I don't feel so alone here on this.
Yeah.
Do you know much about the A82 as a route?
Only the Glasgow section, so I can tell
Right.
you. I can basically tell you most things about it between Anderston, Great Western Road, and where do we go?
Loch
All the way up
Lomond.
to Loch Lomond. So yeah, Stoneymull and roundabout.
So the
Yeah.
dual bit, you know about.
Yeah.
See, I'm
Right.
the same. I actually don't know much about it at all. I have driven it end to end a few times, but I'm looking forward to learning about this here. So,
Well, Hopefully, prepare to be amazed. Hopefully.
we always are. The
But-
reverberations from your last podcast are still with us, Duncan. So, if you're quite happy, take
Let's
it
go.
away.
Okay, so the A82. It's the second longest road in Scotland. It's the scenic route up to the Highlands. It sort of charges up the west side of the country. It starts off at junction, is it 1718 of the M8 at St George's Cross?
17.
Yep, just near Charing Cross. And it starts off with the Great Western Road. And it passes Annie's Line Cross, Erskine Bridge, Dumbarton, Alexandra, and it's all dual carriageway of varying standard.
Okay.
It then proceeds north as single carriageway, passing Loch Lomond, Rannochmoor, Glencoe, goes over the Ballachulish Bridge, and then it follows basically the Great Glen from Fort William all the way up to Inverness, where it finally meets the A9 at Longman, and it terminates there. So we've got a lot.
Glasgow
lot
to
going on.
Inverness, then. The scenic
Glasgow
way.
to Inverness. So there's a new sign going up at the Erskine Bridge, and it says 159 miles to Inverness from the Erskine Bridge. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I'll get going. So
And I should
Yep.
chip in at this point and say that there are trunk and non-trunk road sections of the
Yes.
A82 as well.
there are. So basically, the section from the M8 to the Erskine Bridge, that's the non-trunk section.
So
Yes.
who maintains that? That's Glasgow City
That's
Council.
Glasgow City Council.
And then
So the-
West
so the-
Dunbartonshire?
And Western Bartonshire Council.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it's Amy for a bit, and then it's Bear. Can I do the rest?
For the rest of
So it's
it,
very
yeah.
good. Okay. Let's get everything sorted out. So let's get started. It starts off at the St George's Cross interchange, and that was completed in February 1972 as part of the Inner Ring Road and was built by Wattlings.
Mhm.
So that was a short diversion that takes the A82 over the M8. And then it very quickly...
And interestingly, that bridge was actually, the Great Western Road Overbridge was built by Balfour Beatty as part of the Woodside 2 contract. However, the
Right.
slip roads that you mentioned were part of the Charing Cross Watling section. So
Oh,
it was
right.
that was the contract boundary, the inner ring road boundary. So between the North Flank and the West Flank was right below the middle of Great Western Road Bridge. So the Wattlings and Balfour Beatty had a cut line right in the
A
middle.
cut line to say, that's as far as we're going to go.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's good.
Sorry, I just threw that in
Just
there.
chuck that in there, yeah, okay. So it then comes off the M8 junction and it joins what is known as the Great Western Road.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts off, it's kind of a single carriageway, S4, S3, bus lanes and things. And it becomes dual carriageway at the Garnavel General Hospital, just around there, and it heads up along to Loch Lomond area. Now,
Yeah.
Stuart, was there any discussions, any thoughts about the A82 when the highway plan was being discussed?
Yes, there were. So the Great Western Road was always envisaged as this very busy urban thoroughfare for traffic heading north and west of the city. Unlike the Maryhill motorway, it was intended that Great Western Road would continue to handle mostly local journeys. However, it was felt that there would be such a significant level of traffic using the route by the 1980s that it warranted an upgrade. And the proposals were that from St George's Cross all the way up to Annie's Land, that the route would be dualled with a formal, central reservation.
Yeah.
Now, there were a number of concerns raised by the public about the effect that this would have on the local area, and only parts of the work went forward. So if you think of the section between St George's Cross and Byres Road, there's no central reservation. However, all of the majority of the streets off
The
of Great Western Road,
side roads
were all capped off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've noticed that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that was a key recommendation of the highway plan. There were no underpasses or footbridges constructed. That was another thing. They wanted to get pedestrians up and away from the road to maintain traffic flow. It's still 2 lanes in each direction with parking bays and the like. So really the capacity is there, but the sort of a formal designation of that section as an expressway never happened. Originally proposed to be constructed in 1971, 1972. The outcry was such that it was actually cancelled. The upgrade of the section from Byres Road to Gartnavel, that did go ahead. And if you think of some of the things that are just slightly different up there, it's a bit wider. There's service roads on either side, so property access is still there, but you've only got the 2 lanes in each direction going up the middle. Again, no central reserve. However, the sort of the improvements.
And that's what Duncan's referring to as S4, single 4.
S4.
Single 4. Now, the section from Gartnavel to Anniesland was improved at different times. So the Anniesland Railway Bridge, that was duelled in the 20s, 1929, the new Anniesland Rail Bridge went in, so that's why that's wide enough there. The section from there down to Gartnavel, I believe, was done in the early 60s as part of improvements to the housing roundabout there. Anniesland Cross, we may have spoken about before, that was obviously intended
we're
to
going to
be
get onto that,
grade separated. So that's as much as I can tell you on that section.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven it and it's fine. It was a Saturday afternoon, so it was quite quiet, but I don't know what it's like at peak, but it's fine.
It's hellish.
Is it?
Yes.
Wow. I'll have to go back and give it a go then.
It's quite awful, actually.
So let's just say how it is, Stuart.
Okay. Here's a wee fact for you. Did you know the A82 did not start where it starts today at the end of the Great Western Road at Charing Cross? It originally followed the route of the A814 along the River Clyde, and it rejoined what we know as the A82 around about Dumbarton.
Oh,
did you know that?
I did not know that.
So this leads on to the next bit, which was basically there was a lot of unemployment in the mid to late 20s, and Glasgow Corporation decided, let's get some building going on. So we basically decided to construct the Great Western Road.
So this is the boulevard section.
The boulevard dual carriageway section, yeah. Now, a wee shout out here, thanks to Ian Hill from Sabre, who's doing a lot of research, beefing Sabre up with information, and he's helped us out a lot as well, so thanks to him. He's actually come across a lot of opening dates for the dual carriageway sections. So from Anniesland Cross to Duntochter, is that right?
Duntocher,
right. Yeah. That was completed around May 1927.
Right.
You just think of, guys out building this, by hand with shovels and things. Sir Robert McAlpine and Sons were the main contractors.
Okay. Oh, yes.
And it was mostly completed in 1927, apart from the bridge over the canal, which was the Clober Hill lifting bridge. Now, that's not there today, but this was constructed by Sir William Arrell and Co. And that section was completed on the 16th of September 1930.
Okay.
And it was renumbered as the A82 in 1935 when the rest of it was all finished.
Okay.
And then the next section from Duntochter to Bowling, that was the 4th of December 1925, and that was Shanks and McEwen did that section.
Yep.
Yeah, so you're kind of figuring out where we are. You've got the boulevard section,
I am, and it's coming up obviously where the Erskine Bridge area is now. Yeah.
So we're coming up to the Erskine Bridge.
And just on Mount Blow, so the flyover at Mount Blow.
Mount Blow,
which was built, I think, 1967.
1968.
68.
Oh, close.
One of the earliest flyovers.
Was it?
In the Glasgow Corporation area.
I've seen that on the maps.
Okay.
It's a big S. It's a weird.
Yes.
It's got two big. It's a big
very
bridge,
wide, the A2 under there, and they have changed the kind of configuration. Can I just dial us back a little bit to Glasgow? Sorry, I know we're conscious of time, but there is another flyover at Knightswood. There is a flyover. It's So it's just south of the roundabout at
the B&Q retail park.
At the B&Q retail park, and I'm not sure when that went in. I know there's been debates about that.
That was probably that late 60s time as well. A lot of that coming out of the Scott Wilson recommendations and other work that the corporation had done for the 50s.
I used that every day for a while.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then from Mount Blow to Dalnotter, that's that Mount Blow section, that was 1968, and that was Shanks and McEwen again, and that was 0.3 miles long, that little scheme.
Yeah. Oh, so it's small, but it's obviously now formed up part of where the Erskine Bridge ties in at Dalnotter interchange.
If you look at some of the photos of the Erskine Bridge construction on the website, you'll see some of the photos of that section just being finished while the construction's going on.
Brand new.
Yeah.
Brand new, lovely, fantastic. So we then go under the interchange and it becomes trunk. And then the next section, hold on, whereabouts are we?
I know this is the twisty bit, isn't it?
This is the twisty bit. This is the bit with the they're quite rare in Scotland. The keep apart by two chevrons.
So that's a new thing. They only went in the last kind of 18 months or 2 years or something like that.
Obviously, a lot of rear end shunts or something going on in that stretch, and
it's based on a road safety.
It's blooming narrow going along there,
but it's very old.
It is.
Tell us when it was built, and then that'll give us some context.
So I've not got the dates for all of the bits, but the bit around Barlone Toll, that was 1963, and that was McLean and Co. Company Limited.
Right. So
there is a bit of a gap.
Yeah. Right.
As to when.
My understanding, some from the research that I did some years ago, my understanding is that the section past the quarry before Barlone, so between Erskine and Barlone, so as you come out of O'Kilpatrick, my understanding was that was a 1930s built dual carriageway.
I think it was. Yeah. That's when it starts appearing, but we don't know.
So that explains why it was so narrow, so windy. Yeah. It's got that feel about it.
It's got that teeny tiny little right turn areas.
No hard strips.
No hard strips. Yeah. It does have a footway, so
very narrow. Central reserve.
I think it's a national speed limit as well.
Yeah.
I think fantastic.
Again, we're kind of missing dates, but the bit through Dumbarton up to the roundabouts, that was also mid-20s, early 30s. It feels it.
Yeah.
You've got,
that's a typical kind of urban dual carriageway.
Yeah.
So the roundabout and the underpasses in Dumbarton, so heading through, say, around the north of Dumbarton, that was built in the mid to late 60s.
So the Barlone Toll diversion, that was 63.
Yep.
And then there was a bit of it. There was a wee extension of this when they built the Alexandra bypass.
Yep.
And that the first section, which was actually quite a wee section, that went from the roundabout over the River Leven, and you got kicked off down that big slip road.
Yeah, at Renton.
That was August 1970 that opened, and that was Reed and Malik Limited and Fairhurst, the designers.
I was just going to say, on a design by W. Fairhurst and Partners, we have some records of that.
We've got some photos of the bridge being built.
Yeah, delivered in advance of the Alexandra bypass.
Yes,
yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, and then the second bit, which took it from basically the River Leven Bridge up to Auchendennan, basically. That was 1975, and that was Wattlings, and it tied up at a place called Duck Bay.
Oh yeah, I know where Duck Bay is.
So that's where that's as far as the Alexandra bypass went.
You get Stoneymullin roundabout when it's Duck Bay's just north of that, isn't it?
Next to the Cameron House Hotel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm following you now. Yeah.
It actually, I tell a lie. It actually tied on to an earlier improvement at Auchendennan, which was a wee diversion opened in 1964, and it was constructed by Sportswork Limited.
So that probably pulled the road away from the shoreline. That
pulled away the road, so it had a nice
because if you go to Duck Bay, in the Duck Bay Hotel and Restaurant, you actually, when you're walking into Duck Bay, the old road, the remnants of the old road run up the front of that hotel. So that probably pulled the road from there out to where it is now.
Yeah, exactly. Sportsworks Limited. The only time I've ever seen Sportswork as a contractor was they did a bit of the Inverness Distributor Road in 1986. That's the only time I've ever heard of them.
Not one I've heard of
at
all. No.
It's one of these wee contractors.
Have we passed the Timberfoot Bridge yet?
Yes, that was built as part of stage 2. Do you like the Timberfoot Bridge?
There are 3 of those Timberfoot bridges in the Strathclyde area.
I know one's on the A723.
One on the A723 near Newt Hill.
Is there one at Luss?
There's one on the A82 that we're
further up.
Mentioning that now, and there's also one in East Kilbride at Peel Park.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they're all in the same sort of style and design. So there you go, just a random fact for you.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
No, okay, sorry.
Yeah. So the dual carriageway ends at the roundabout, and it's basically single carriageway the rest of the way. We've got a bit of dualling in Fort William, which we'll cover later on, but it's single carriageway from here on in, so hope you're good at overtaking.
We'll have plenty of practice.
This takes us up to Loch Lomond, the famous loch of Scotland. So it's the largest loch in the UK by surface area, and one of the largest in terms of water volume. That's surpassed by Loch Ness, which again we'll talk about later on.
Okay.
The route along here dates from the General Wade Times, who we've spoken about a couple of times before. He built quite a road running low down, and then it sort of cuts high up. There's remnants lying around if you look on the maps. Thomas Telford, our pal Thomas Telford, he built basically the low down road that follows the side of the loch. And it stayed like this until the 1980s. So we're going to move on now to talk about the Loch Lomond upgrade.
Yeah.
So the A82 from Balloch all the way up to Tarbert was quite a narrow single carriageway. It was quite slow. It was quite twisty. It went through Luss. It went through Inverberg further up. It was not fast. And plus, you have the A83 further up that turns off. So you had the A83 and the 82 traffic stuck behind each other, basically. Now, this was always going to be looked at for improvements, is that right? It's always something that's going to be, it was on the book.
It was a long-standing aim to have that built, and a lot of people were annoyed, I think, at the time that it took so long to get off the ground. But they built a lot of the motorways and other dual carriageways first, before coming back to the A82.
So they've improved it as far as Tarbert, but not beyond there, which we'll talk about in a minute. So a wee bit of the background of this. So the Scottish Development Department split the route from Balloch to Tarbert into about 8 bits, 8 manageable sections. Dumbarton County Council, which were later Strathclyde, they were given the section from Auchendennan to Arburn. And then our friends Baptishaw and Morton were given the route from Arburn to Tarbert. And this was later pulled back to Hollybank, which we'll talk about in a minute. Several routes were proposed. We know a couple of the guys at Babty. I think Donald Lamont's one of the names. I think Robin, might have had some involvement with what this road was going to look like, what the alignment was, where it was going to go. They decided there was high and low level alternatives. High level would have been good because it would be away from the road, but then you would have to get up there and get back down. So they decided, let's just keep it low down next to the current road.
More buildable.
More buildable road. I think they were looking around about the 80-metre contour to put the road in, which would have been fantastic views. Quite a feat of engineering, but quite difficult to build.
Nightmare getting everything there every day. I can see that.
Yeah, so the low-level route was chosen in 1972 by Babties. I think Babties looked at the whole thing before it progressed to follow the existing road, but it required major work to meet the standards that the Scottish Development Department were wanting the road to be. So they initially proposed about 80 kilometres an hour, and that's about 50-odd miles an hour design speed for the road, so it would have been 50 all the way up. The reason for this is it would have meant you could have slightly steeper hills, slightly sharper bends, and not have to blast away so much. But this was later said, no, let's just go full 60 miles an hour or 100 kilometres an hour, I would say.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Yep. So 7.3 metre carriageway with 1 metre hard strips and 2.5 metre verges, and overtaking sight distance, which we've heard about on the A9, that was required so we could still overtake stuff on the single carriageway. So the Strathclyde sections, they were built as single carriageways, as we know, with the option of dualling south of Arden later on. So you know that roundabout that's kind of in the middle of just a sudden roundabout as you go up Loch Lomond? Yeah. It's quite wide through there. I think that's deliberate. I'm not sure much about the history, but it does seem like we've left a lot of space for dualling if we want to. Babty, Shaw and Morton only proposed dualling at the north end, which was Hollybank to Tarbert. Yeah. But this was dropped. We'll speak about that when we get up there.
Okay.
But issues were raised by Strathclyde region by traffic maybe using the A814 to basically cut corners and divert around this work, because the A814, that's quite a twisty wee thing. So they were worried about people going on this, but they said, look, let's just try and keep two-way traffic going as much as you can, particularly the Luss to Camas na Clas, so that overtaking lane, because that's basically widening the existing road, using temporary diversions and lots of temporary embankments where necessary, because the loch's shallower down here than it is further up, so they could do that and get away with it.
Okay.
So Camas na Clas, or is it basically the Firkin Point section down to the Hollybank section, and was let. That was done first because there would be that big cutting at that overtaking lane, so they could use the rock and ship it down the road, so they could start building up embankments. So that was let first to start blasting all that out, and that was let in 1985 to tractor shovels.
Well, tractor shovels, we know, is building sections of the A92, Edinburgh City Bypass, that sort of thing.
They were good at just digging things out.
Yeah. Good ground workers.
So they dug out around 440,000 cubic metres of rock from the Firkin Point curve. You've got that huge rock cutting, that big pre-split cutting, which you can see for quite some distance away. 64 metres high, that rock cut. It's very impressive. So the Luss to Camas section, that involved temporary embankments and things, and large retaining walls and things. Some of the old road was kept for laybys and the like, but a lot of it was just removed because it was just not in the
substandard,
not in the way. Yeah. So if we go through the sections, we've luckily got all the contractors for this bit, so this is quite exciting. So from Auchinleck into Arden, so this is the Strathclyde sections, that was improved in May 1988 by Mackenzie Construction. I think, are they still about?
Yes.
They're still about. Yes, they did. I heard an advert for them last week.
Yeah.
So they're still about, yeah. So from Arden to Auchinleck, that was Miller Construction, and that was around December 1987 that was finished.
It's quite late on a lot of these
Yeah.
improvements.
Yeah.
Much later than people probably realise.
It was very late, yeah. And then from Auchinleck to Polnabernach, that was July 1986, and that was Rainsway Construction Limited. I've not heard of them before. They're probably a Central Belt contractor. Not sure
I've
if they're
heard of
still about.
Rainsway?
Yeah.
Rainsway?
Yeah.
That's one of Balfour Beatty's big Scottish
Is
subsidiaries.
it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You call yourself a road safety.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't
everyone.
worry, Duncan. He does
Sorry
this
for
to me all
offending
the time.
everyone.
If I've not been on a particular roundabout, also he's like, call yourself an expert. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Rainsway?
Passion. It's the passion.
I
know.
apologise, listeners, to
Anyway.
anyone screaming into the air about Rainsway not being...
Getting a grilling here. This is not good. Anyway.
Anyway,
We'll carry on. So from Polnabernach up to Arburn, that was June 1987, and that was Ludden Construction Limited.
Ludden.
Construction.
The
Sorry.
complete contractor.
And they were all done by Strathclyde Regional Council back in the 1980s. So the sections that Babty did run from Arburn to Luss, and this is basically the Luss bypass. Everyone kind of knows about it. This was the 19th of September 1991, and that completed. That was the last bit to be done. And that was built by Morrison's. It was built actually within a year. It was quite quick, the construction. They're very good at doing things early. And then from Luss to Camas-na-Class, or Firkin Point, that was late December 1989, early 1990. We haven't got a date nailed down for this, but that was Shanks and McEwen built this big section. And then from Camas-na-Class to Hollybank was opened on the 20th of July 1987, and that was tractor shovels. I was talking about that, yeah.
Interesting. I know Shanks and McEwen are still on the go, but they moved into like waste transfer and that sort of thing.
Yeah. What was I going to mention? Oh, yes, we've got a couple of the construction photographs for this, don't we?
We have several hundred construction photographs.
Basically, the bit north of Luss up to Hollybank, we've got a lot of these. These are fantastic. We're hoping to get some of these shared from the start, from nothing to the complete road. Very, very exciting. Now, the last bit from Hollybank up to Tarbert, that was not taken forward. It was improved already in 1968 because it was a bit twisty, and they said, okay, who was it? Strathclyde Region, I think, improved it. And when they came to looking at the upgrade, they said, all right, this bit's already been improved. That's the bit with, the double white lines that goes over that big hump in the road. Yes. So this was basically dropped in 1990. We've got, I think, a booklet about that, about what we're going to do. This was going to be the Joe Carriageway bit.
And I hate to say it, but I read somewhere that this was another scheme that was postponed to allow for the fast tracking of the M74. So the upgrade of the A74. Yeah,
I know. Trade one thing for another.
Yeah, so the dualling of the A1 and the and some other improvements that
were pushed back.
But you know what? It's not terrible. I mean, you've got that double white line, but I suppose contrasted to all the bits south of here that you've just talked us through that upgraded, it was probably
the best
bit.
It was one of these classic. It's the best bit, so we'll leave it and then maybe just ignore it.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I've never felt that particular section to be substandard.
Do you know, my stomach always kind of sinks when I get to that bit because I know that the standard
what's coming round the corner
after Tarbert.
Yeah.
You'll talk us through that.
Can we go back to the overtaking lane, right? We often get criticism about that overtaking lane.
It's
very short.
550 metres. It's one of the shortest in Scotland, I think. It's quite wee.
I mean, it's very difficult to overtake anything on that.
If it's just one thing,
if it's one or two things,
it's just you versus the caravan or you versus the lorry, it's okay. But if someone's in front of you and they're not quick and on the ball, then you basically can't get by. I found it's like one of those jobs. It's almost useless. Yeah, it
was one of those things where it was in the standard that we have to put this little thing in because it's in the standard. It's going up a hill, it's going around a corner. We're going to put this in, but it's quite. It can be quite ear-raising a bit times.
I think when these things were put in HGVs were possibly a lot slower. And it was probably a lot easier to get past something crawling 20 and 30 with clouds of smoke coming at it. Now lorries, especially if they're quite unladen, they can go pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult. Or you get these people that speed up on the straights and then slow down in the bends and stuff like that. So it can be quite tricky. You know these type of drivers.
You know who you are.
Yeah. Oh. Anyway, sorry, Duncan.
So quickly, Hollybank to Tarbert, we shout out here to Stuart McLean, an old engineer from Baptist Shaw and Morton, who sent in a wee bit of a write-up as to why this bit wasn't improved. So this was meant to be the dual carriageway section, and it was improved in 1968. There's, for geologists here, there's an igneous rock dike and settlements near the road, which is that big hump in the road.
So igneous rocks being volcanic rocks, aren't they? Let's see.
Quite difficult to blast through, because if they wanted to improve this, they would have to basically flatten it.
Yeah.
And they felt that, look, it's not really worth it. Plus, Tarbert, I think, were quite against the big dual carriageway bit as well.
Yeah. What was the reasoning for dualling that section? Just traffic levels, I take it?
I assume so. I assume so, because it was going to become dual carriageway and then hit a roundabout to the west of Tarbert. So you would have had a bit go off 83 and then right for the 82 as it does just now. But
remember, that section's quite busy because that's where it bifurcates for the A83 as well.
83. So if you want to go up the 82, you've got to turn right.
It's a turn off to stay on, isn't it?
Yeah, I always wondered why we haven't got a roundabout there.
Yeah.
So signals.
Space.
Yep.
So the 83 turns off. So most of the traffic actually goes that way. So the traffic flows do drop considerably. Unfortunately, so does the road quality.
Yes.
So for the next 10 or so miles,
agonising.
The route is not been touched since the mid 1800s.
Yeah.
So this is Telford's close as we can get to Telford's original alignment.
Yeah.
So in the 1800s, this was probably like the M1. This was fantastic. But nowadays, oofed, it's tight going up there.
Yes.
You can nearly, there's
when
some
it's
quite
busy,
narrow bridges, and I've had it before where you get like buses or HGVs, and even though it is two-way traffic, you can get hit by things the other way. You've got to be very careful. And they've got these stone walls that are so close to
lovely masonry walls.
Lovely masonry walls that are just hard up against the road, And you know what? Cars are only getting fatter. Aren't they? They are. I find that puts hairs in your chest, that section.
There's often so much water running off the side as well, the slopes under the road, and then in the winter, and then come March, April time, the whole road's potholed to buggery from one end to the other, which is never particularly pleasant either. And the drainage at points can be horrific.
That's the 1800s for you.
It does need upgraded. That's a priority in my opinion. Somebody needs to look at that.
Now there is a scheme for that. Are you going to talk about?
I'm going to talk about that. Yeah. So the reason this hasn't really been touched is that in the 1930s, again we'll talk about this later on, but we were going through a big phase of improving most of our roads for unemployment and getting the motor car is coming, so we were to get the roads better. So we improved the Glencoe section, and then basically everything north of Ballachulish up to Inverness. That was all improved. This was also going to be improved. And it was going to be done a bit later because it was, I think, of a reasonable standard compared to everything else. But something happened in 1939 that kind of delayed everything.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know. When that happened and then that finished sometime later, we had other things to do.
Yeah.
Other priorities, things changed. And this has never really been picked up. Because again, when I drove the 82 a couple of weeks ago, it was quite quiet. It was all right. Dare I say, enjoyed going up this section because it was so quiet. There was very little going the other way.
Away from the main summer season can be okay at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just when it's busy and there's two trucks passing each other, scary stuff.
Yeah.
Now, it has been improved a little bit.
Okay.
So the hydro people put in a big power station at Inverugulis, is that right?
Inverugulis, that's nice.
Yep. So up the hill is the Sloy Dam, very impressive.
Yeah. John and I have seen that.
I've seen that.
Seen that up
very,
close
very
a couple
impressive.
Of times when we've been
Go and visit the Sloy Dam; it's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it channels all this water down to this big, nice building, and they built a new bridge for the 82. So it's been improved along there. And then further up, there's something called the Pulpit Rock. Which we've also improved.
Yes, now these were notorious traffic lights back in the day, weren't they? What's the story there?
So, in the late 60s or the early 1970s, there was a big rainstorm and a bit fell into the loch. So, a large retaining wall was built below the road and signals were put up as a temporary measure. And these lasted for around 40 years before we finally got, McLaughlin and Harvey to construct this little viaduct on a big curve.
It's almost
over the gap.
Killy-Cranky, yes.
It is almost Killy-Cranky. So there's 5 piers holding up this one big girder,
right,
going round the corner. It's Very fun.
I think that was a Tony G and Partners
Tony
design.
G and Partners,
Yep.
yeah. And it was around about May 2015 that was completed.
Yep.
So I do like that bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there is plans, I believe, at the moment to improve that whole section from Tarbert to Inverran.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
So
and,
it's
and what form is that going to take? Do we know yet?
I believe something.
We can speculate.
Yeah, it's 2 3.7 metre wide lanes with footways and cycleways on one side or the other, with hard strips.
With hard
as
strips.
Well. So we're a proper single carriageway, modern width,
but you
straightened out,
much faster.
Yes.
And what you're saying is about footway, cycleway, but hopefully segregated.
Yes, segregated.
NMU.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, segregated.
Yeah.
Segregated footways and cycleways.
So not a motorway then, Duncan.
No.
All the plans are on the Transport Scotland website. Yeah,
I believe there was a couple of viaducts proposed on this section. Yeah, there's a
similar
couple of
to Pulpit Rock.
Yeah,
yep.
Big viaducts proposed. So that's going to be quite exciting.
Some civil engineering there because
when that goes on, because that section you've got the railway sitting just above you, which you can kind of see wee viaducts and things.
Oh, that'll
but
make it fun.
That'll make it very fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Not to bid for any of that work.
Interesting. Yeah, it's strange as well. Just going back to you mentioning about the section where they were going to do the duelling. There was a lot of people moaning on social media when we put up that we were doing this podcast. Should have been duelled. Should have been duelled.
Yes, of course it should have been.
Well, you go and duel it then.
So there you go. It should have been duelled.
So it should have been duelled. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay, so that was Loch Lomond. I hope you had a good time. Yeah. So north of Loch Lomond, the road quality picks up considerably. So we've actually got proper curves and bends and actual engineering into the road.
Now, these curbs, I wanted to ask you something on curbs. Are there any reflector curbs on the 82?
No. I'm
when
very
you
upset
mentioned
about this.
No,
I know.
was thinking maybe we see reflectors.
There's some at the very northern end at Longman roundabout.
Right. And reflector curbs, for people who don't know, are obviously those curbs that you see which has kind of indentations
the wee bumps on them.
The wee bumps on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So are we at Ardlui now?
Ardlui, yes.
Yes. Okay, I thought that. And that's where the road suddenly widens. And
widens out and it goes, oh, wait a minute, we can pick up a bit of speed here.
Now, was this a Strathclyde Regional Council improvement?
It was several... No, this was a Central Regional Council job.
Oh, so of course...
So we're going north.
When you approached Ardlui, you crossed the boundary, you then came back into Strathclyde and then you go out again in the old days.
Yeah, so we're now into sort of what we now know as the district of Stirling. But back then it was Central Regional Council. Okay. So they had a couple of improvements. So the Ease Bridge, that was 1977, and that was Leanne Mackenzie and Shand Limited who did that bit. And then we've got the Derry Darragh improvement, that was around 1985, that was completed, and it was J.G. McGregor. You go through here, there's lots of big rock cuts, lots of blasting that went on. We know a chap called John Redpath. Remember John Redpath? Yep. He was involved in the Black Craigs improvement in 1981, and that was constructed by Watlings. That's that, I think, that big straight section with the pre-splitting. There was a whole engineering paper he wrote all about pre-split rocks that we've got a couple of copies of.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's got that big straight bit, which I've done a couple of overtakes on because it's very helpful. It's very useful.
Well, if it's safe to do so.
If it's safe to do so, yeah.
Philly boots.
Yep. And then this takes us on to Crean-Larach bypass.
Yes. So from what I remember, it wasn't going through the town. There was a low bridge, was there not? Or something
which was more problematic for A85 traffic.
85 turns off because the 85 joins up with the 82 for a little bit, and then it turns off at Tyndrum, and then we go up to Glencoe. So it's kind of it's a what is it?
It's a major kind of junction there.
It's a multiplex. That's what it's called. Oh, it's a sabre word. It's a multiplex.
So that's where you have one section road, but it's actually got two numbers at the same time.
M876, M9 for another example.
That's a good example.
So the Crean-Larach bypass was a godsend when it finally came along. When was that completed? Was that 2012?
So that was completed December 2014. That was Grotmai and RG McLeod constructed that. This is it's quite a small section. It's about a kilometre, but it's a massive benefit.
Remind me again. It's been a while. Is it just S2? As in
it's S2.
There's no overtaking lanes on it.
No, it's too small for overtaking lanes.
Oh, fair enough.
Three roundabouts.
Just two,
one either end.
One each end. Yeah. What an improvement that is. It goes to show little improvements can have a big benefit.
Yes,
exactly.
I agree with that.
Yep. So onwards from here. So this bit is a little bit older because it was doing the job of two roads basically. So the first little bit was 1971, and that was RJ McLeod. That was a little sort of 2 kilometre section that was improved. And then we've got the Uick Railway bridge over the railway. That was 1961. That was constructed by James Anderson and King, one of these old contractors.
Oh, yeah, I've not heard them for a while. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then the last bit, which is like the big wide bit from Uick to, now it says Tyndrum, but nearly Tyndrum, it was 1982, and it was Central Regional Council and Tarmac constructed it, and Perth and Kinross County Council did the other 2 bits. So that takes us up there. So we've got, so what we've basically covered is the modern section of the 82 with the improvements.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can have a wee bit of a discussion about how it functions today. Now, when I went up it, when I was on my own, it was fine. It was quite quiet. I was going along. I actually did some overtaking at Luss. I was quite pleased with myself. Unfortunately, when you come out of Loch Lomond and you've got the narrow bit, you're stuck. You're genuinely quite stuck because you're in a big queue and you can't really shift very much.
What I do though, Duncan, is so interject is that whenever I'm using this road, I am aware of that bit, you know, near the Pulpit Rock section, the very narrow sections we're talking about, and I try and sort out my overtaking either side of it. You know, so if I need to get past something, then that's the time to take. Unfortunately, it sometimes doesn't work out that way, and you're stuck behind the bus.
Yeah, fantastic. So another wee thing to mention is this little section's actually got average speed cameras on it.
Oh,
the Crianlarich to Tyndrum bit. They're mostly for the 85, but they cover this bit as well. So there's something to look out for. So north of Tyndrum, we've got the Glencoe section. Do we all like the Glencoe section?
Iconic, isn't it?
An iconic section.
Which is very flat, I
very
suppose.
flat.
And then you just see these big green pyramids coming out, which make up the hills.
The Glencoe hills, yeah.
Yep. Snow poles on either side of the road. Yep.
So this was the big 1930s project of Scotland. We've upgrading the Glencoe road. So we've had routes before. We've had the General Wades Military Road as one route. Thomas Telford then came along and built another route. And then we got the 1930s and they built mostly another route. So we've got kind of 3 roads going across the move for about 30 miles, 25 miles, something like that. It's a big clearway as well, so keep going.
Yeah.
So let's see. So work began on these 3. It was divided into 3 sections from Tyndrum to Glencoe, and it was taken forward by I think the county councils, but they had some external engineers as well working on it. So work began in October 1928 on this section. So it did take a little bit of time to get built. So the first section runs from Tyndrum to Bridge of Orchy, and that was September 1931 that was completed. And it was the Ulston Limestone Company Limited. They're from Wales.
Interesting.
So they've done a bit more in the 82. And then from Bridge of Orchy to King's House, that was May 1933, and that completed the improvements. And it was John McCulville of Abergavenny. Is that right? From Wales again.
Abergavenny,
that one. And then it's got these 2 fantastic bridges on it, the Tulla and the Etive bridges. Now, myth busting here. A lot of people think that these were done by a chap called Owen Williams, who was quite big on concrete.
Yep.
Look at the bridges on the old A9 in the 1920s, big concrete structures, you know. Yep. These were not done by Owen Williams. These were done by 3 engineers called McGregor, Sutherland, and Hunt. So William Hunt was the main engineer that these 2 iconic bridges. They're getting a bit tired now, but you know,
good to get that out there though, because I've seen that as well, and I know we've had a wee discussion about the Owen Williams involvement. Owen Williams also later famous for the M1 London to Birmingham stretch. So yeah, good. Yeah, yes, you heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here first, folks. And then the last bit from King's House to Glencoe, that was September 1932, and that was William Tawes built that section.
I've heard of that.
I've heard of Tawes.
I think Stuart, you might be able to help me here. We've done lots of bridge upgrades through here as well.
Yeah, there was one. Oh my goodness, you're testing me now. But there's been a few old bridges that have been demolished and replaced. Was it?
There's the Bar Bridge. There was one. The one at
Connoglaze.
Yes.
Is that one?
Yeah. There's one near Glencoe. I think that
there's
was the
one in Glencoe as well.
And then there's the one at the Study as well. That really narrow, twisty section through the rocks.
There is a Scottish
big
government
sort of curve thing,
commitment to replace substandard bridges on the A82 and the 85. It's a long-term improvement
kind of end of life cycle type thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I will say though for this 1930s section? Bridges aside, it does stand up quite well.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
I don't dread any of that. I
No.
think it's got quite good sight lines, and it's
Very
seems to be-
good sight
and it's
lines.
looked after. It looks good. You know,
Mhm.
it's fine.
Just the width is the thing that gives
Yeah.
it away its age, isn't it?
It is the width.
Yeah.
You're
Mhm.
right, but the
Mhm.
sight lines are always quite good.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you'll see some of the old Thomas Telford marker posts at the side of the
Mhm.
road as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mile markers.
Still holding up very
Yeah.
well.
Do we like James Bond?
Well,
Yes.
yeah,
We do like James Bond. Have you seen Skyfall?
Yes.
It was in Skyfall. You see him driving along as the road's empty, which is a very fictional representation of the 82.
That-
But there you go.
That's right, and they misname it in the film, don't
Yeah,
they?
they
as
call it the A9,
they
and
call
he
it
goes
the
up the
A9.
82.
That annoys me
Or maybe
so much.
maybe he gets lost. I
You
don't
know, there is a scene where Bond and M are standing looking, but that's not the A82.
No,
as I
that's-
understand. That's another road off the side of it, and it's
You turn left somewhere and go up a little road.
famously everyone recreates that picture. But no, it's good to talk about Bond. I like it.
Yep.
So where are we now? Glencoe.
We're at Glencoe now.
Yeah.
So the section north of there, we're going to leave that till part 2.
Mm-hmm.
But the old 82, that sort of kinks inland and goes over Kinlochleven
Mm-hmm.
and goes over a couple of bridges there. There's that viaduct in Kinlochleven as well. Do we know what we're talking about?
I
There's
don't.
a little concrete viaduct that looks like Killiecrankie, but it's made entirely out of concrete. It's a little curved thing. As you come into Kinlochleven, there's a little viaduct, and that takes you into Kinlochleven.
No, I'm going to
No.
look out for that.
Yeah,
though.
I'll
Mhm.
look out for that. I was thinking back to Glencoe, where a few years ago they built, when there was some improvements done, and they actually put in a viewpoint for the waterfalls as well.
Oh yeah, is it the three waterfalls or something?
Yep.
Like
Mhm. You can
Yes.
pull over there, and there's a nice big parking bay that tourists can pull into and
that? Mhm.
go for a wander and have a look. That was helpful, because that was one of those parts where people would pull over and just park. And it
Yes.
would cause chaos, so
Yeah.
there was a bit of work done there. that.
Even
Always a
my
problem on these roads.
recent drive in September, it was off tourist season. Laybys were full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the laybys were all full. You got people, parking on the verge, walking along. I think we should really think about maybe doing something with this, beefing up the laybys a bit more, providing a path, because we have all these lovely places, and we say, come to Scotland and look at this,
Yes.
but you've got to park in a
It's
1920s
exactly
lay-by.
the same problem. You remember my North Coast 500 podcast? It's
Mhm.
exactly the same thing. As these things have gone on telly, become more popular, it can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
The infrastructure, and I think the 82 suffers from that
Yeah.
as well.
Another moan as well. I'm sorry. I'm another moan. I did the A830 for the first time.
Oh yeah,
The length, and then something's got to be done there.
you
Is there
reckon?
not some discussions about
There's
big
a lot
visitor
of-
centre and
yeah.
stuff there?
I mean, when I was going past, there wasn't even a train going past, and the car park was full.
It's just not fit for
Yeah.
purpose at the moment. Yeah. Interesting.
So this
Alright.
can lead on to other discussions about, is it functional? 'Cause is the 82 functional from here down to Glasgow? Does it work? Could we be dueling it all in the next 5 years?
It's functional, but
Mhm.
it's of varying different qualities in areas that doesn't make it a chosen route for me a lot of the time, unless
No.
I have to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and the other thing is it can be busy on summer Saturdays and Sundays
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
bank holidays, but actually the rest of the time it works pretty well.
So,
Are you
right.
going to duel that at significant cost when there's other priorities? Probably not. In
No.
fairness,
The
but-
strategic traffic that goes to Inverness and all these places goes up the A9.
Yes.
The A2 is more of an alternative route for things
It's a
like
very
that.
long alternative route,
Yeah.
but it is an alternative.
But I use it when the weather's bad. So if I know the weather's bad in the east and it's going to affect the A9, the snow gates could be shut, you might find that the A82 is okay. I have used it twice for that reason.
Good. So you leave the snow and you go into the rain instead.
Yes, exactly. At least I can drive in the rain.
Yeah.
My car's an automatic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, listen, Duncan, that's been a fantastic part one.
It
Lots of
has.
very useful information there. I know that we will be adding the A82 webpage to the site very soon, and
hopefully.
this route history that you've been giving us in detail will upload one of those route history documents as well, so people can actually go on and have a look, and that will be at the usual scottisroadsarchive.org/A82, so be sure to check that out and get a bit more detail. But that is the end of part one.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
come up for air now.
Yeah, we'll take a break, stick with us, and we'll be back with you very, very soon for part two.
Part 2. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.